Hey guys, welcome to Full Moon Empty Road, and it is time for another road trip. This time we're looking at a 7.5 hour drive to Athens, Ohio, to the home of the Bobcats, Ohio University. So just a little quick rundown here. I ended up choosing Ohio University. My son, now granted he's 8 years old, but he started back school this week. So I figured maybe picking a haunted school would be a good topic for this week. Now granted he's only in elementary school, and I don't think college students start back for like another month. But I figured, I'd rather do a story on a haunted college than a haunted high school or elementary school or middle school or something like that. So doing my research, I found Ohio University, and it's got a lot of great information, a lot of great stories. There were a couple of them I had heard. I don't think at the time I realized that they were affiliated with Ohio University, so that was interesting to find out. Like, hey, I recognize that story. I didn't realize it was here. So that's why I chose Ohio University. And just another thing to touch on. I actually got some feedback from a friend of mine who checked out the first episode, and one of the things they suggested said, and you can tell in the first episode I'm strictly reading from a piece of paper. Like I say, I'm brand new at this, so I'm not too particularly good at firing from the hip, as it were. But that was one of the things they suggested. She said, you're a lot more engaging when you're just kind of talking about something you're passionate about that's in your head rather than on paper. So I'm going to try and fire from the hip. I've got some notes here and whatnot, but I'm going to try and just talk on the college a little bit. I may stumble over my words a little bit, and I do apologize for that, but I do kind of want to keep this as more of a raw recording rather than something too heavily produced or too doctored up. So now I may do 10 different takes before I get the one that I like, but just kind of stumbling over some things or having to backtrack, I'm not going to worry about that. It's more of if I just, completely miss something. So I want to start out with a quick history about Ohio University. For starters, the college itself is over 200 years old. 2 decades. 2 decades. See, right there. 2 centuries. 2 centuries of life with Ohio University. That gives it a ton of time to develop some nice scary stories, some urban legends and whatnot. The school was first chartered in 1787. It was the first university chartered through an act of Congress, and it opened in 1804. It started accepting its first students in 1809. Ohio University is the 10th oldest university in the nation. George Washington said the settlement of Southeast Ohio was not an accident, but the result of careful deliberation of wise, prudent, patriotic men. Manasseh Cutler is considered the father of the university, along with Revolutionary War Brigadier General Rufus Putnam. The central building was named after Cutler and built in 1812, and Putnam Hall was named after the general. Now, one of the things, I hope I pronounced Mr. Cutler's name right, his first name at least, because, looking at it, I was like, I think that's pronounced Manasseh, and I meant to look up a pronunciation of it and completely forgot to. And now I'm recording. You know what you're thinking? Well, just, stop recording. Stop recording and start again after you figure out the pronunciation. But you know what? If I get it wrong, maybe someone will correct me. So a decade after the charter, settlers out of Marietta, that is Marietta, Ohio, not Marietta, Georgia. That would have been a long trip. Settlers out of Marietta traveled down the Ohio and up the Hocking River into Athens to establish the school's location. Athens was the halfway point between Marietta and Chillicothe. And looking up, I didn't realize this. Chillicothe was the original capital of Ohio until Columbus became the capital in 1816. There is a building on Ohio University known as the Ridges, which was once Athens Lunatic Asylum before becoming the Ridges. The Lunatic Asylum operated from 1874 until 1993. That place had a long life. It provided services to Civil War veterans, children, and those deemed mentally unwell. According to some of the research I looked up, it was noted that lobotomies, ice baths, and electroshock therapy were used as forms of treatment. Oh, you're sick. Here, take a bath in some ice. Your brain's not working right. Let's drill a hole in it. And electroshock therapy, that might just be a sweet little vacation for your brain for a few minutes. As I say, this was a lunatic asylum. Well, it was a mental asylum. They called it a lunatic asylum. Imagine if they were operating today, it would definitely be a lunatic asylum. There are a lot of lunatics out there, especially when it rains in Chattanooga and people get out to drive. That's where the lunatics are. But like a broken record, patient care declined as the number of patients grew. One particular story to kind of show how patient care declined was the story of Margaret Schilling, who went missing. And I'm going to discuss more on that when I get into the urban legends and the history, the haunting histories and whatnot. But she did go missing back in December 1st of 1978. Once the asylum shut down and saw some disuse, it was redeveloped by the university, where it did become known as the Ridges. And aside from classrooms and administrative offices, the Ridges is also home to the Kennedy Museum of Art. I believe that's in the Wilson building. Just imagine that. Repurposing a mental asylum. To me, that just seems like that's asking for trouble. So that's a little bit of the history on Ohio University. There was a lot to cover on this, and I didn't want this, and I feel like I honestly could have made this a 2-hour episode with the amount of information, with as old as this place is. So I kind of wanted to just get a quick little backstory and then move into the hauntings, which is what we're going to do now. We're going to move into the hauntings. One of the things I have noticed about Ohio University is it checks off the boxes to be there should be more than there was a movie made in 2011 on it, and it honestly should have been made numerous times. Just it's got so many different cliches. There are 5 cemeteries on the grounds. It sits between all 5 of them. Some folks would consider that a pentagram. It was supposedly built on a Native American burial ground. So, that's strike 2 right there, Native American burial ground. How many movies are there out there that deal with Native American burial grounds and people not having a good time? And it has a former insane asylum, as we touched on. Former insane asylum. The Ridges is probably the most famous haunted location affiliated with Ohio University. Aside from it being not really aside from it, with it being a former insane asylum. So Margaret Schilling went missing in December of 1978. She was a patient at the Athens Lunatic Asylum. The story says she was found about a month and a week and a half later. So I mean, I'm talking 42 days later, roughly. She was found by a maintenance worker. One of the weird things about it was where she was found. She was found naked, had been dead for, quite a while, and they found her clothes neatly folded and placed next to her. The body had decomposed so much that it left a permanent stain on the floor where she was found. That stain can still be seen today. There's wonder, there's speculation of how that could have happened, and possibly it was just she was a sick woman who maybe got locked in a room up on the fourth. I think it was on the fourth floor, up on the fourth floor, and just couldn't get out, and just over time died. Imagine going like that, just fourth floor, stuck in a room, and you just live out the rest of your day stuck in a room. I couldn't imagine that. As I mentioned, there was a movie made in 2011 about the Ridges, directed by Brandon Landers. I've not seen it. I actually did not even know it existed up until I was doing research on the university. But to me, what I've read on it sounds like it was more of a found footage film, kind of like the Blair Witch Project kind of thing. And it was named The Ridges, named after the place. The West Green is said to be built on the West Green is the name of the place that was built on the Native American burial ground. It includes Wilson Hall and the Convocation Center. One of the interesting things about Wilson Hall, aside from everything else that goes on with it is, according to urban legends around the college, it is considered to be at the very center of the 5 cemeteries. So, like, if you're thinking it's a pentagram, it's at the very center of it. Most hauntings took place on the 4th floor, slamming doors, disembodied voices, and stories of a student committing suicide. I will say Ohio University does hold the claim as the only university to have a sealed room. Room 428 in the Wilson Hall has been sealed off. So, from my understanding, there were numerous issues that kept happening with 428 and students dying. I plan on touching back on that a little bit more here as I wind down the episode. But yeah, it eventually got sealed off. The Convocation Center, or the Convo as it is called, has stories centered around the dorms. One of the stories is a student died in their sleep and reportedly snuggles sleeping students. So, you're a student who's assigned to the Convo Center and you're asleep one night. Someone cuddles up to you. And you turn and look and there's nobody there. I wouldn't sleep ever again. Just imagine being cuddled by someone, in the middle of the night by someone you can't see. Or maybe you can. Maybe there is someone there. And maybe you can see right through them. I don't know. I don't know how long I'd be able to sleep in a place like that. There's another story of an RA that got murdered by her boyfriend and still to this day walks the halls doing her RA duties. So since I mentioned it again, we'll touch back on room 428 of Wilson Hall. In the 1970s, just a few stories to let you know just how insane this place was. 1970s, a student died under mysterious circumstances, and no one would agree on how it happened. A few years after that, another student died under mysterious circumstances as well. The report stated that the student had dabbled in the occult and astral projection, and yet again, no one could agree on how she had died. There are reports of disembodied voices that start out whispering and then grow to shouting if they're not being paid attention to. Another account is demon faces being scratched into the wood of the door. And apparently it happened repeatedly. The university replaced the door numerous times, and every time they would come to find, demonic face. And from what I read, it was like almost immediately. Maybe not immediately, but not long after a new door was put on. And it's one of the things kind of makes you wonder, was it vandalism, or did somebody open a door that never got closed? There is the story of a slave named Nicodemus who was found in one of the frat houses during the time of the Underground Railroad, before it was actually a frat house. He was found after some, this house was part of the Underground Railroad, and someone tipped off some of the people of the community that this particular house was part of the Underground Railroad. So, some of the citizens, if you want to call them that instead of animals, decided to form a little raid party and go into this place. And the only person they found was this gentleman named Nicodemus, who they shot, killed, and dragged out of the house. According to, because it is now a frat house, according to some of the frat brothers, he has been known to pull these sheets off of sleeping people or turn on an Xbox. So he's sitting here thinking, hey, what the heck? What is this thing? Other places of note include Jefferson Hall and Bush Hall. They make mention of the marble sound, which is apparently the sound of hundreds of marbles getting dropped on the floor. Washington Hall is said to be haunted by a girls' basketball team who died in a bus accident after leaving the campus one night. There is a student in Shively Hall who was said to have had participated in occult ceremonies, because we just want to keep doing that, who participated in occult ceremonies at Hauntings Cemetery. The legends suggest that once she had actually stopped performing said occult ceremonies, that she could occasionally feel something, like it felt like something was trying to pull her back to that cemetery. Like an unseen force trying to bring her back. Ohio University has been, without a doubt, one of the most interesting places I have researched. Kind of want to wind the place down for now, or wind the podcast down. There were a lot of stories in here. And I'm sure there are probably dozens that I've missed. But I really, really enjoyed doing my research on this one. And I hope you can tell that I really did enjoy it. This was a lot of information, a lot of stuff to consume. But I do appreciate y'all coming with me out to Ohio University, as it were, and participating in this little story of histories and hauntings. I really do appreciate y'all checking it out. And again, I didn't know too much about the place aside from the Margaret Schilling story and Room 428. So it was definitely interesting to find out some of the other stories. The frat brothers, and having a guy just like hanging out, for the last 200 years, just that actually cracked me up. So again, thank you so much. And I have turned on listener support, And I do, at this point, have a goal of reaching 550 listeners. So if you have any suggestions, yet again, of places that you want me to cover, drop me a line at fullmoonemptyroad@gmail.com. And another thing I'm thinking about doing is, like, maybe once I do hit 50, well, I guess that's 50 listens, once I start noticing that I've got a higher fan base, maybe doing a fan call-in show. And also looking ahead, I'm thinking about maybe around or on Halloween, maybe just doing an episode of ghost stories, like, you know, well-known ones already, just kind of reading them, getting them, you know, putting my voice to them. Let me know what y'all would think about that. You can reach me at the email address I've provided. I'm actually going to probably post a Q&A section on this video, and just, you know, let me know what you think. And again, thanks for stopping in, checking out episode 2 of History and Hauntings. So let's go home.